Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it's been like ever since my son was born back in October, and just kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse into everything that's happened since then. He is almost 4 months old, and these past 4 months have actually been quite interesting. They've been hard, they've been exhausting, but they've been the most exhilarating and wondrous months of my life. Harrison was born October 27th, and I went into the hospital that day with, no intentions of what I wanted my birth plan to be like. I just wanted to come home with a healthy baby, and I did get my healthy baby, but I ended up getting more than just a healthy baby. I developed postpartum depression and anxiety from his birth, and I want to say the start of that had to do with actually what happened during his birth. I had to have an emergency C-section, which resulted from him having low heart tones due to the fact that the cord was wrapped around his neck. We didn't know that the cord was wrapped around his neck until after he was born. So when I got into the hospital and the doctor came in and broke my water, she had stated that there was meconium in there. So Harrison was stressed out while I was having contractions, and the reason why is because he was sunny side up and the cord was wrapped around his neck, so every time I had a contraction it was just putting more and more stress on him, and we didn't know it at the time. So they tried to do a bunch of things like moving me to my sides, putting me on my hands and knees, trying to figure out a way to get his heart rate to stabilize, and eventually they got it stabilized, but prior to that they started to prep me for a C-section. And once they got him stabilized, then they stopped. The doctor said that she just wants to watch and see what happens in the next couple hours, see if I progress or anything like that. And so it was about 5 hours later. Unfortunately, I wasn't progressed any more than what I had been when the doctor came in and broke my water. And during that time when they checked me, his heart rate dropped again. So they decided to take me back for a C-section. And I feel like I was traumatized by that because, it was my first baby. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going on, and I was scared. I was scared for my baby. I was scared for me. And I was just hoping that things would be okay, and of course they turned out fine, but it was still a scary experience. I've grown up with depression and anxiety, so that's something that I've had my entire life, and I think with the stress and exhaustion from being in labor, having a newborn baby, going through a C-section ended up pushing me into my postpartum depression. And it was a hard experience to go through because it's something that I've never had before. My depression never got as bad as what it's been these past couple months. I've had my ups and downs, but never anything as bad as it has been. Since I had a C-section, I had to go into my doctor's a week after being discharged from the hospital to, have myself checked out, have my incision checked out. And that's when I guess I really started noticing that something was off. I get into the doctor's office and they ask me right as soon as I walk in if I've been having any baby blues. And of course, I just burst into tears and I start sobbing. And Curtis was there with me, so he's, trying to console me. And while they're asking me all sorts of questions, and, they're asking questions such as, have you felt down within the past couple days? Has your eating changed? Are you sleeping? Things like that. And of course, I'm not sleeping because we have a brand new baby at home. So, I'm exhausted from that, and I'm exhausted from, being in labor and not having any sleep in the hospital. So I'm tired all the time. And then they asked me if I was having any bad thoughts about myself, about the baby. Honestly, I was. I was very unhappy with how everything was going. At the time, I didn't know, but only because I had a week-old baby who all he did was scream and cry. And I didn't know why. He was crying after every meal. He would cry anytime he wasn't eating. He just cried all the time. And I was thinking to myself, why would a week-old baby have colic? I've always heard that it's not until they get a little bit older that they actually have colic symptoms. And so I didn't know what was going on. And I was very frustrated, very irritable and angry because of that. I wasn't able to soothe my baby. I wasn't able to comfort him because all he did was cry. And I didn't know how to comfort him. I didn't know how to soothe him. I would sit there and I would just walk and shush him and lightly bounce him and rock him, give him his pacifier, and he would just cry some more, and I didn't know what to do. So my doctor ended up increasing my antidepressant amount a little bit higher than what I was currently at, and for a couple days I felt a little bit better. And then I would say it was probably about 3 or 4 days after that I started to not feel as good again. At the time, I probably didn't realize that I had been on that medication for so long that it most likely was not working like it should have. Essentially, my body was immune to it. I just kept feeling worse and worse, and I ended up feeling more guilt and more hatred for myself. I thought I was the worst mother because I couldn't comfort my baby. And then I felt guilty for thinking that. But then I would tell myself, why feel guilty because you can't comfort your baby? You must be doing something wrong. And so these intrusive thoughts just kept coming in and out of my mind, making it harder and harder to calm down and relax. And it just made it really hard to actually want to do anything. My desire to eat had suffered so much that by the time I had hit my 6-week postpartum appointment, I had lost all of my baby weight. I was down to my pre-pregnancy weight by that time period because I didn't eat. I think the fact that I was pregnant for so long, and especially during the 3rd trimester as your belly grows and the baby gets bigger, there's less and less room for your stomach. And so when I would eat, I wouldn't be able to eat very much because there wasn't enough room. So I got used to eating very little quantities. It compounded my inability to want to eat because I wasn't hungry enough to eat. And so that also played a factor in my depression, and still does, because I don't eat like I should. I don't drink water like I should, and I know it affects my mood. But when you're not happy, the desire to eat is very low. And so it just makes it harder to actually want to do something that is good for you. By the time my baby was 4 weeks old, I had gone into the doctors again because they wanted me to keep coming in every so often to be checked up on because of my depression. So my doctor has a nurse practitioner that works underneath her, and I went and saw her. I had saw her the week prior as well, and my symptoms weren't getting any better. And so I had gone into my appointment, and she had the psychologist in the OBGYN's office come in and talk to me, because she was saying that with what's going on, we feel like we need to do something medication-wise, but what we can do here is not adequate enough for you, and that I would need to be seen by somebody who could actually work with me on getting the right medication set up. So the psychologist came in and talked to me for a little bit, and her and the nurse practitioner decided that it would be a good idea for me to go up to the hospital and go to the behavioral health center and get some help. And essentially what that is it's a part of the emergency room department specifically set up for mental health, and you are assessed to see what the severity of your symptoms are like, and depending on that, the type of treatment is then decided, whether it's just, meeting with the psychiatrist to determine if medication is in order, or if admission into the hospital is something that needed to be done. So I went up there, and I was very, very afraid of what was going to happen. I was scared that I would get my baby taken away from me, because I didn't want to be labeled as an unfit mother, even though I myself felt like I was unfit. I didn't want somebody else to tell me that I was unfit. And so when I was at my doctor's appointment, my husband was at work, and the nurse practitioner ended up speaking with my husband over the phone, telling him what was going to happen. So I ended up driving home, meeting my husband at home, and we went up to the hospital, and I checked myself in. He went back home with the baby to wait while I was there, because they said that I most likely would be there for a couple hours. He took Harrison home and waited for me to give him a call. While I was there, I ended up speaking with the psychiatrist, and they determined that I didn't need to be admitted. All I need was just a medication adjustment, and since I wasn't able to get in to see anybody within a short amount of time, they just decided to give me the medication, and then also set me up with some therapy appointments at a local behavioral office. I ended up going home that day. So I started the new medication, and it was a slow go at first. I still had a really hard time with everything. I was very hard on myself, and anytime anything happened that was out of my control, or anytime anything went wrong, I would just beat myself up and take myself down. And no matter what, even if it was just something as simple as spilling water on the floor, I would tell myself how horrible of a person I must be, and that I shouldn't even be around. So those thoughts were really horrible to experience, because at the time, I'm waiting for this medication to start working, and then I'm waiting to be able to get in to see the therapist that I needed to see, or nothing was working as fast as I hoped it would. With the therapist, that didn't end up working out, because during the month of December, I had only seen that therapist one time. I had 4 appointments set up with her, and all but one of them were canceled. And so I decided that I would hold out and wait to go in to see the original psychologist that I had seen at my OBGYN's office, and go speak with her. But unfortunately, my appointment was set up, and it was 6 weeks out. So I had to wait the entire month of December before I could go in and see her, which made it really hard, because I was still having these bad thoughts. But I pushed through it, and eventually I was able to get in to see the psychologist that I had initially saw, and currently I'm still working with her on getting myself better, making myself better. I'm still on medications. I have been working with another provider on putting myself off of the medication that I had been on for a couple years, and moving myself to something new. I do hope that I can start feeling better about everything in general. It's just a work in progress, and I hope that eventually there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I do feel better about myself now that I have had time to let all the medications work, and as time has gone by, as my baby has gotten older, things aren't as hard anymore. When I was home with my baby and feeling all sorts of horrible things and thinking all sorts of horrible thoughts, one thing that did constantly go through my mind was how hard it's been to bond with him, because I don't think I did until he was about 2 months old. And so with that, it makes it hard because you have this little human that relies on you so much that can't really interact with you or with their surroundings. They're 100% entirely dependent on you, and it just runs you dry, runs you ragged. And with being so exhausted, I felt resentment towards him because I had wanted a baby so much, but he was unable to reciprocate with anything. It made it hard to bond with him because I just had this little human in my arms, and I could barely figure out how to take care of him, let alone get enough time to learn how to love him. It's hard to explain, because even though I know what it feels like to have a hard time bonding with him, because I just felt so down, that it's hard to explain how I didn't have a connection with him, how I didn't have that joy and endless love for him right as soon as he was born. I looked at him wondering, what do I do? What is this little blob that's in my arms? It took me 2.5 months before I actually started to think and actually tell him that I loved him, because I guess I was still trying to figure out if I did and how to love him, even though at the time I knew for a fact that if anything were to happen to him, I don't know what I would have done. I definitely would have gone into mama bear mode. I find myself staring out the window a lot, unable to think about anything, because I don't know what to think of. I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to put my feelings into words, other than I'm tired, angry, hopeless, exhausted, frustrated, alone, lonely, but yet happy to be a mom. Even though there are times I don't feel like I'm a good mom, I feel guilty because I can't be there, or because I got angry, or I got frustrated and I put the baby down and walked away. But in the end, I just have to tell myself, you're doing what you can do, and what you're doing is the best thing that you can do. So just remember that you're not alone. I reached out and I found that there's a lot of other moms that I know who have suffered with postpartum depression. So reach out, talk, don't hold it in, love yourself. You'll find the way. You'll come out of the darkness.